You're about to watch a case study with my client, Austin Dunham. And when we first started working together around 18 months ago, he was making anywhere between 20 to 30K per month in revenue in his dating coaching business. And he was actually actively losing around $6,000 per month at the time of our initial audit. And last month, he just hit his first 100K cash collected month. And we're going to talk about everything that it takes to be able to make that happen and what real foundations look like inside of an online coaching business. So we talk about identity, tactical things on the client success side, on the acquisition side of things. And if you've watched any of my case studies before, you know that we give away the farm and just talk about exactly what happened. And what happened specifically was $500,000 to $800,000 in annual recurring revenue each year just from dialing in the foundations. And also this culminated in ultimately a 20 to 36 times ROI for his initial investment in working together. So if you watch the interview in full, you know what to do at the end if you want similar results. And if not, just comment down below if whatever your biggest takeaways were, and I will see you on the other side. I hope you enjoy. What's up, guys? I have a very exciting case study that we're going to go over. I have my client, Austin Dunham here, who is a amazing client to work with. And he's had an absolutely just phenomenal rise from the very beginning of working together to where things are at now. And one important thing about Austin, which I really want to get into like right off the bat with this, is that to me, this is a special case study for three reasons. The first one is that I think Austin's story about the growth of his business is very expressive of the true reality of what it looks like to actually grow and scale a coaching business. You know, there's a lot of you see a bunch of screenshots of like Slack wins and a bunch of case studies and testimonials of explosive growth, people making like multi six figures per month in less than a month and stuff like that. And we've had clients do that too. But oftentimes what happens with that is that revenue spikes and then it dips all the way down into a black hole. And the growth that Austin has had over the last 18 months has been very steady. And that growth is expressive of point number two, which is Austin is now built the foundations for what I would consider to be true scale. Like he's right at the precipice of scaling to multi six figures to seven figures per month. And none of that would have been able to happen if the foundations of his business weren't set. And so we're going to talk about very tactically about what that means and also what looking ahead looks like now. And the third thing as well too was special for me. Austin really has just done everything that, we've not like told him to do, but as far as being a good client and just actually, reading the signs as far as what his business was telling them, what we were coaching through together, and really just like putting his head down and not complaining, just doing what it takes. He's really kind of like the ultimate expression of that. And I think his background, as a, fitness influencer and just basically really is like calisthenics superstar, had a lot to do with that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So
Cool.
Austin.
Yes, sir.
How do people know you?
Yeah. I started my background as a fitness influencer, like you said, just posting calisthenics content. I actually got into the whole space of online, not even knowing that I could make money from it at all. So everything, I always say like everything was a bit of an accident for me. And then over the course of time, it became a lot more intentional. So I actually pivoted my brand in 2021 after doing low ticket fitness courses for 7-8 years and making a lot of money from it. I decided to get into the dating space and I immediately knew that I wanted to go towards a high ticket business model. And at the time, I didn't really understand how it worked. I just kind of took my previous business partner / operator from my fitness stuff into this new domain, not really knowing like, sales teams or anything. All I knew is how to create content. And that's all I really cared about. And so given my previous success in my fitness space background with the low ticket stuff, I just realized that I would just go to this space, create content the way that I've always have done it, try to get a lot of views, reach a lot of people and send them to a landing page where I guess they'll book a call. I didn't have a closer at the time. So my video editor started closing for me. And then I got attached to the sales agency who I got connected with. And then, at that time I was like, everything's great. Everything's good. And by then I've already been posting online for 6, 7, 8 years now. So it's been a ride, but I mean, through the shift, and I guess we'll get into that, I had to like redefine my whole entire identity, how I go about content. I had to really step up as a leader and as a true business owner and not just a content creator. And that really involved detaching myself from things that I previously thought were important and getting awareness on things that I thought didn't matter. So,
Yeah, and funnily enough, actually, that kind of ties into my own connection with you going into this. So I actually started watching YouTube videos right when you first launched your YouTube channel, like way back in the day.
nice.
Yeah, back then I was doing a bunch of calisthenics stuff. I was watching Chris Heria and your videos specifically, and so it's funny. I've worked with a lot of successful people that have like lots of status and big brands and stuff, but I never really cared about that in general. And also, I didn't watch any of their stuff or anything like going into working with them. So it was just kind of cool for me on a personal note to say, oh shit,
Hmm.
it's Austin Dunham.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that actually kind of bleeds into exactly what you're saying here, right? So you have a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers on there. And so, there's this big thing in the online business space of views equal money. And so, do you want to talk a little bit about how the YouTube strategy that you were, well, not just YouTube, but your content strategy in general that you were applying to get
Yeah.
followers and subscribers and views, and how that may or may not have translated into sales on,
Yeah.
on the back end?
Yeah. So, I mean, in 2016, I actually started out very, very niche, talking only about calisthenics and fitness content, problem solving videos. And I really didn't care about fame. I was just kind of just talking to a very small audience. And in hindsight, looking back, I was doing quite well off 4,000 subscribers at the time. I didn't have a program or anything, but I had affiliate deals and people would always click through. But it was sometime in 2018 when I hit 100K, I was like, I want to be famous. And so it's like through that subconscious shift in my mind, I started going about my content strategy in a way that I knew would appeal to a very large demographic, not just in fitness, but like people even adjacent to fitness. I wanted people to like me for me, not just the information I gave, you know? And so through that, I ended up hitting 1 million subscribers through being consistent. Every video is getting 200,000 views. Even with my low ticket stuff, I should have been making way more money. I was doing like 40-ish K in the pandemic time frame when everybody had to work out at home. I hit like 80, 90, 1 or 2 months. But yeah, when I transitioned to the dating content, the dating channel with the high ticket business, I just thought the same exact thing. Like, let me just create mass appealing content that reaches the majority amount of people. And then through viewership, some people would trickle down who might be qualified. Now, the issue is that may work for like a low ticket model when you're selling something for like $27, but it definitely works way less in terms of when we start selling high ticket prices like 4K, 5K, 6K, even above that. And consistently, I would meet people who had way smaller audiences than myself, in B2C niches too, who were like absolutely crushing it. And I was always wondering, like, what do they have that I don't? And I was always confused by it. I was like, is it their content? I mean, it's not their content because their content gets like 2,000 views a video or like 500 views a video. How am I getting 50,000, 100,000 views per video, but barely making 20K a month? So I didn't understand that part. And through investing in myself and learning more and more, what I realized is kind of like you said, is that it is not about the amount of views you get at all. It's really about your messaging and the right type of person who watches the content. And likely that always is not going to be in a huge um, demographic. My videos now might get 2, 3, max 10,000 views, depending on the topic. But compared to 4 years ago, when I was doing 100,000 views per video in the dating niche, by the way, I'm making 5 times as much now, So that took a big shift for me. And as somebody who's created content for so long with that belief so instilled in my subconscious that views matter, it took a very long time for myself and my identity to detach from the views.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll come back to that specifically. So let's get into it. So let's talk about how we recognized this was a problem in the first place, right? So the very first thing that I always do is I audit my clients' businesses. And just as a quick side note for anyone watching this, if whoever you're working with doesn't take the time to understand who you are and what your business is and who it serves and what it's supposed to do, and they're not really pulling it apart to the degree that they need to, that's probably why, at least at a base foundational level, you're not having good experiences in group programs, because you're getting shoved through templates and courses, and other people's situations are getting mapped onto yours. And it's not even just like in group programs, it's any type of coaching or consulting relationship that you get into with your clients. Um, I firmly believe if you don't take the time to do that, everything that you build on top of that just may or may not work. Whereas if you just take the time to do that, you have at least the highest chance that it could. And so, of course, we do that. And our process is very meticulous for clients who invest in the highest tier of service, which Austin did. And that looks like basically combing through every single component of your business as though we were looking for a dead body, basically. So we're watching all the course lessons, I'm watching the onboarding calls, I'm interviewing the team and the clients and the founder just to understand exactly what is going on. And when we audited Austin's business, there's a bunch of things that, speaking to the initial point here, the foundations weren't set. And so what did that look like practically? So from a revenue and profit perspective, Austin's revenue was anywhere between like 20 to 30K per month consistently ish. He did hit some 50K months in the dating business, but it was exactly that. It was like a flash in the pan, up, down. There was no explanation as to why that happened. Looking deeper into it, Austin's profit specifically was much less than that. So the coaching business specifically was actually bleeding money each month. The actual price Austin can, of the offer and how that related to the profit and the team, Austin can break that down if he wants. But big takeaway is that the business was losing money. And so luckily Austin was in the position, because of his large YouTube channel, because of the low ticket offers and everything else that he has going on in the background, that he could sustain this happening in his coaching business. And also because of that as well, it was kind of hidden. It wasn't actually that visible until you really started to look at everything. And so from there, we're like, oh shit, we're losing money. The revenue is not where Austin wants it to be, and the profit is definitely not where Austin wants it to be. And so what's the point of running a business if you're not meeting your own goals financially? There is no point. These aren't charities that we're running. And so one of the key things that stuck out immediately when it came to exactly what Austin said, is kind of elevating his identity and his relationship with his own business. It was this matter of ownership. So like Austin said, the guys that were on the team from the fitness influencing days and all the low ticket stuff carried over into the dating company, which is Digital Romeo. And basically the exact strategy that was applied previously was mapped onto the dating company one for one, and it simply wasn't working. And so one of the first things that we did, which was very uncomfortable, is we had to get rid of not only the team members, but also the systems that were installed. And so we really basically deconstructed the whole business from the ground up, which is, again, a very uncomfortable thing to do. And also ties back to the third point that I mentioned in the very beginning here, why this is exciting for me, is because Austin did it. You can imagine, like, from a empathetic perspective, you pay a consultant lots of money to take a look at your business, say, hey, here's what's going on. You're losing lots of money. This is why. And by the way, everything you've been doing for years, you have to change, right? That's an uncomfortable place to be in. And so let's talk about that moment specifically, Austin. So what was that like for you to realize that? And then the next step from there in having to take action towards that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty good at stress management, which I do believe helps with my level of success I've experienced now. But at that point in time, it was a lot going on, because it was like, okay, I'm still kind of running the fitness stuff too. I haven't fully cut that off yet. This individual who I definitely need to let go is also still a part of that. But not only that, he has to log into like absolutely everything. I don't even have logins to my own stuff. Like, I don't even know like half the stuff that's going on, which is like something I take full accountability for. And so I just knew in order to reach the goal, like, I just have to do things step by step. So might still have the notes in my phone right now, but I remember I was like, okay, we have this system, this process, this program, we're using this. I need to log in emails to this. I need to change this. I need to change that. I was a little hesitant on letting him go because I like really giving people a chance, and I'm actually a very like loyal person in terms of my team. You know, which is something like I definitely need to work on. But it's very hard to let somebody go that you've seen like a lot of success with previously. You know, like this individual is the reason why I had the 7 Common Club ClickFunnels Award and like have my lifestyle right now essentially through his help. But, I've seen a shift in the individual's performance and behaviors towards me. And one final thing that kind of set it off and told me that I really need to go through with this is we were having a text conversation and I was just asking for some information. I think information that you requested me to get. And I can tell like he had a little bit of an attitude because he didn't like that I was getting outside help. And then he said something like, "You've been moody lately." Like he said something like that, and I'm like, "Listen, like, you can't like disrespect somebody even in a subvert way when I pay you every single month, right?" So after that, I was like, "Listen, man, it's been a great 7-8 years, but we just need to go upon our own ways." He already had clients he was working with too that was paying him a lot. One of which was a competitor of mine at the time, which was also a huge conflict of interest. And so I was like, yeah, it is what it is. And he just gave a thumbs up. Literally to that, I never spoke to him again. He just gave a thumbs up on the message and just never spoke to him again. But that's the way it is, man. But yeah, it was tough at first, but through that, after releasing him, um, I for about a month or two, I kind of was in this period where it's like, okay, I really got to set my foot on the gas, got to figure things out myself. Do I need a team? Do I not need a team? I ended up finding a really pretty decent team at this point in time now, but yeah, man, it was tough, but I knew what I had to do in order to get the results that I actually wanted in the long run.
Yeah. And what does it feel like now that you have full ownership of your business?
I feel like I just have full control. I take full accountability towards everything. Before, because my operators always did things for me, or even sometimes told me what to do or what to post. I've always felt like I had like a reliance on like other people to like do certain things, and I kind of didn't know what was going on in each department. I just trusted people blindly. But now, because I have full ownership, because I actually understand more of the departments, because I changed my identity from that just content creator to actually like a business owner now. I feel like I can just manage things and have things in my full control at this point in time. And I have awareness of everything too, which is important in order to scale also. So it's not, now it's not that, oh, people are telling me what to do or what I should do. It's more so I'm calling the shots and then they're asking which ones do I like. And I say A-okay to either option A or B, then it gets executed. So.
Yeah. Yeah. The actual boss now, right? Which, it's funny because this happens a lot we can see this happening because of the influencer background, right? Oftentimes people will find influencers in, these like growth operator roles or whatever. They come into these businesses and they promise to do 100% of everything. You just got to keep doing you
Yeah.
and money's going to magically come into the business. And that's of course happened before, right? But there's consequences to these things, right? Exactly as you said, you don't have visibility as far as what's going on in your business. Um, Ultimately, it creates a weird dynamic as far as your relationship with your own business goes because it's not really yours if you're not, really holding on to it and yeah, exactly that, just like leading and taking ownership. So, firstly, I do want to say once again, like I've been, funnily enough, at that exact moment that you were dealing with that, I was dealing with that as well in my own business in it materialized much differently, but the overall pattern was the same where I kind of abdicated the responsibility for things that were objectively mine in my own business because of this idea of I was listening to other people, honestly, of what ought to be doing to scale. And I knew not just tactically and strategically, but just like in my gut and in my heart, like this is not what my business needs. And of course, all the metrics showed that at the time as well. And so The beginning of 2025, in the middle of it, frankly, too, also was kind of like a shedding for me at the same time. Um, and I can empathize a lot with the the difficulty of having those uncomfortable conversations, especially with people that you have a strong connection with, because that's what happened to me too. But
Yeah.
uh, ultimately, that's what it looks like to be an entrepreneur. It's Tim Ferriss actually has a quote. I believe it's from him, um, where and Hormozy said similar things as well. And so is Layla Hormozy, where the skill level and the quality, if you will, of an entrepreneur can be measured by the number of uncomfortable conversations they're willing to have. Because when you think about it, a lot of the majority of our workflow is a series of uncomfortable conversations, sales calls, coaching calls, trainings. Like all of it is leading towards some type of confrontation of a thing that's getting avoided. And I think getting comfortable with that, and of course, leading into like coaching skills specifically, you get good at how to not only handle those situations, but have an optimal outcome. So, anyways, switching gears back to the tactical and strategic side of things. So, we mentioned previously the previous content strategy was about getting views, subscribers, followers, and what people throw into like the vanity metrics bucket, which makes sense because what you were ultimately solving for at the time was to be famous. And so you were doing things that would make you exactly that. And it was working, to be fair. You do have really high status socially. You do have over 1 million subscribers on YouTube. You do have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. And that has opened doors for you, right? So it's not to say that that's a bad thing in general. It actually is very useful in regards to what you're doing now. The catch is that it's a sequence thing. It's like you hear people say this all the time: "What got you to where you're at is not what's going to get you to where you want to be." And
Yeah.
so that exact moment of what we're talking about right now is where the shift needed to occur. So I want to give people some really tactical takeaways here because you are uh, undoubtedly in our community the person who has the most experience with YouTube. And there was a few, like, and shout out to my twin brother, Ethan, as well, because he played a very significant role in this specific moment that we're about to talk about and getting Austin to shift his content strategy specifically. And again, also, shout out to Austin because my twin brother, he basically helps people grow their YouTube channels, but he doesn't have a YouTube channel himself, and he certainly doesn't have the credibility that Austin does as far as his experience goes. And so Austin really like took a leap of faith in trusting his judgment, and also obviously there's a lot of data to back it up, right? But at the end of the day, it's like it'd be easier to hear that from someone who has millions of subscribers and also has been through the same path. You had to.
Yeah.
It was a leap of faith, and so what was the one shift? So we'll start kind of like go high level and go deeper into the specific changes that happened. What was the main shift that you made with your YouTube content specifically that started making you more money almost overnight?
Yeah. So first thing is just simply the ideation, I would say. I'm really good at creating ideas. I think I'm a very creative person. I've never been one to like run out of ideas. I've been posting on YouTube every week for like over 9 years. So I've never run out of ideas. However, the ideas that I was sourcing from, once again, always came from that what when I would create videos, I would think to myself, like, could my sister, mom, cousin watch this and like enjoy it and want to subscribe? And then if the answer is no, then I probably shouldn't make it. So how can I create something like that, but it's still like dating adjacent somehow, still within like the general niche? And so this is where I sort of, it was more entertainment based. Not every video, but a lot of them were public interviews. Girls rate us 1 through 10, gets a million views. I DM'd 50 IG models on IG. Here's what happened. I try to still put teaching elements in it. Just the overall packaging itself needs to appeal to a wide demographic. However, the shift moving forward was, okay, I need to get clear on who exactly I want to speak to, otherwise known as like the ICP, right? And so once I got clear on who that individual was, and this just took some time. Like at first I was just kind of guessing like, oh, a guy in his 30s who wants to date and meet women, right? But over time, I got more clear on who that individual is. And after working with more and more of them, start to really know them, and I almost know them better than they know themselves. And so that then allows me to create messaging and ideation content topics that I know would appeal to that person who is either experiencing some sort of pain, and I know my solution could solve that pain, or attacking their limiting beliefs, solving problems for them, etc. So the biggest thing is just overall the packaging. I stopped trying to appeal to a broad audience, and I started speaking to like that individual who I know I could help. And I just started. I didn't overthink it. I honestly just started just going for it, just testing out creatives, and I told myself I would post twice a week, every single week. And I did that. And like, I'm sure the first few months, like it wasn't that great or like the messaging was slightly off. But after that, I kind of got the flow of it. Now, the other big thing was and this was a huge thing too for me personally, that I discovered in terms of like how a video should be structured. And this is strategic. And that is, I realized that in order to like convert a video for a high ticket coaching offer, it has to hit three things. One, show expertise. This is the idea of problem solving. So like giving value in some sort of way. Shift beliefs. So you have to give them like a new perspective or show them why the way they were thinking or doing is wrong, and create some sort of bridge where they have like never thought about it that way, or wow, like, oh, that makes sense. And then also show proof. So, some videos I was doing like the first two, where it's like I was giving like straight value, and it's like, it's great, it's talking to the individual, but it's still not really booking calls and converting. But once I intentionally did these three things where I was providing value, problem solving, shifting beliefs, even if it's just micro shifts within the messaging, and then three, showing proof, meaning proof of myself, showing proof of other clients, testimonials, interjecting little things here and there. And then fourth thing, creating a mechanism for my offer was very, very huge for me. So I used to say, book a call with me, book a call. You want more help with this, book a call. It was like, okay. But like for me to like really excel, I started calling it like the Romeo effect. So instead of selling the program, I'm selling like the mechanism behind the program. And I would simply call to action to the next step. I don't care if they book a call with me. I just want them to go to the page. And so once I started going from, hey, book a call with me if you want to work with me one-on-one, if you want more help, I started saying instead, listen, if you want to actually meet high quality women that will improve your dating life forever, women who are actually interested in you by installing what I call the Romeo effect that has been proven and tested over the past 5 years. We now have over 300 testimonials, and I want you to be next. Just check out what I made for you down below. It's a free training that will go over exactly how the process can be installed in the next 3 weeks. So like, that's a way better pitch than saying like, oh, book a call with me. And so through that shift alone, plus like the other little things I've realized, the click-through rate to actually landing page hits increased like by 3x. So that was a bit, but all that stuff is what really, really helped me solidify my messaging and packaging.
I hope you guys actually really digested that, because first of all, who this is coming from, right? This is a guy who has millions of subscribers on YouTube, on Instagram. He's got a gigantic brand. He did the thing that everyone else tells him to do, and he figured out his own way. And it applies directly to every single person watching this video. And, Austin talks about, and by the way, too, I'm sure you've already heard most of that stuff already, if not all of it. And so there's really only a few reasons why you're not doing it. One is you're just straight up not doing it and it's not producing income because the activities aren't happening. Or two, there's a challenge in identifying who the specific person is that you need to be making your content for. And, we have a process in doing this that's integrated with our audit process. It's called the high value client matrix. I'm going to run through this really simply because anyone who's been watching my stuff has heard of it before, but I don't believe in the idea of an ideal client. To say it simply, they're just not real. It's just something that you make up. And so we have a 10 set of factors to be able to objectively measure who your highest value client is. There's difficulty in doing that in the beginning with Austin because of the systems basically didn't capture that data, essentially. And so it had to be an organic process in understanding who this highest value client was that we needed to orientate the entire business around. And so after you get that understood, at least at a baseline level. The next step, of course, is exactly as Austin said, creating content that's specifically for them. And one of the key shifts that I've found that's very useful for me, and I think for anyone making content, is you're speaking to one specific person when you're talking to the camera, not this like idealized form of a like generalized group of people, right? You're speaking to, like in Austin's case, one dude. And when he watches this video, it feels real. Why? Because Austin's specifically speaking to him. And that 3 to 4 phase shift in the content that Austin's describing is super important, because essentially what we're doing in the content is we're installing a perception that gets people to take the next step. And that first piece is really important, expressing expertise. What does that do? It positions you as an authority, which does what? Builds trust. What does the belief shift do, which is phase 2? The belief shift creates that gap that has them realize, oh shit, he's right. I do have this problem and I have been doing this the wrong way. And that's why my life looks the way that it does. And then the third shift in providing proof, and as Austin said too, this is a subtle note that he said, but it's really important. You integrate that subtly into your content. You're not just like in a very overt way saying, oh yeah, and here's how I made my clients $1 million in 30 seconds, right? He taught a concept and then he showed, hey, this is how it worked for this specific person who just so happens to be my client as well. It's implied, right? And you stack that over time in the videos and it creates this kind of holistic shift in the perception that we need for them to do what? Take the next step. And as Austin said, this is very important as well. This is particularly important in B2C offers. And this also speaks to the first thing we talked about as well, of like mapping other people's things to your business that doesn't fit one for one. A B2B call to action, book a call with me, doesn't work in B2C offers. Why? Because it's triggering an adverse reaction to a sales process. And consumers don't like being sold to. They like buying stuff. Business owners actually like sales and they know how the dance goes, so they're willing to engage with it, right? And so to say it really clearly, a simple book a call to action for your fitness offers, for your dating offers, for your career coaching offers, anything that targets normal people is likely not going to work. And exactly as Austin said, you have to break it down into baby steps. The next step is not to book a call. The next step is to watch the VSL, actually. And you don't say, watch my VSL. You say, get the thing, because people like receiving things. Like the Romeo effect feels like an actual thing that somebody can use to improve their life. And the video just created that case. It created an argument as to why they should take that next step. And this is, I'll say this again, very important, because everything else that Austin had in his content was relatively dialed in. It was good enough to be making like 50 to 100K per month. He changed one thing, and it was the call to action at the end of his videos. And if I remember correctly, like pretty much doubled your booked calls, which is pretty nuts. Just like a small line at the end of the videos had that big of an effect.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Um, I don't know if that alone did. I definitely think it's compounding based upon like all the things I talked about for sure, and just consistency. But I would say, because I mean that channel had 500,000 subscribers before I started doing that off like the other content I was talking about. So even in the comments, it's like, bro, what is this? Or get back to vlogs, or we want to see vlogs. Like what, you know, it took like time and 20, 30, 40 plus videos before people started realizing like, oh, okay, this Austin is different. Like the way he's coming, the way he's talking is a little bit different. And I'll be honest with you, these videos are not only way easier to do, but they are boring. You know, I'm sitting here it's a talking head video. I'm not doing anything special. I'm literally just sitting here at the desk talking head, versus before I would think about ways to make it creative. I got to go to the beach with a new scene and talk, or let's do a vlog where I'm giving value, but each talking point has like a cut scene where I'm doing something interesting. Like that's that influencer mindset I had. And that's a bit of a limiting belief I had to get over, is that, yeah, every video from my eyes might be a little boring. You know, I'm just in the same spot talking about a new topic today, but If the goal is to like provide real impact to the people you can help, they could care less if I show up to the desk every video. It's only the 18-year-olds and 21-year-olds who want to see my Miami lifestyle and me go approach girls and do backflips.
Literally, like
Yeah.
literally. Yeah. And yeah, who cares? It makes money. And it's exactly as you said, it's what your highest value clients have been proven to engage with. And, simply put, like, again, to speak to the beginning stage of the business as well, there was a lot of different kind of acquisition strategies happening, like experimenting with ads, lots of top of funnel, like Instagram content and various different platforms. And we just take a look. Where is all the money coming? It's coming from YouTube. So let's just do more of that. It really is that simple, right? At least on a
Right.
strategic level. Tactically, of course, we're talking about the details. That's where things get hard. Um, let's talk about the client success side of things. So when things first started, um, you had multiple platforms. So the community was on Circle and Telegram, and the course was on Kajabi, and there was no systematic tracking of any kind whatsoever. And there wasn't a client journey, and the course was kind of uh,
Indefinite.
it was indefinite, but also it was of the 2022 red pill era
Yeah.
of the whole dating space, right? And so the actual content itself was um, outdated, just like straight up. It was just straight up outdated, and also the course videos too were like 2 to 5 minutes long, um, which is kind of a unique problem because most people make their course videos too long, and in your case, it was too short. And so you have to strike the balance between the two. And so one of the very first things that we did, speaking to like the consolidation of all the systems and making things simple, is Circle went away. I still think Circle is a great platform, by the way, but Circle went away. You still got the Telegram group. Kajabi, you still have that for your fitness stuff, for the low ticket offers that are passive, but the program is now on School, which, I have my opinions about School. I think it's good in some ways and kind of suboptimal in others. But what nobody can deny about School is that it's fucking simple. And so what has it been like for you, just kind of simplifying just the course in general, just from a platform perspective?
Yeah. I mean, one, I had to redo the whole course. We can talk about that later, but yeah, just simplifying the processes that the client actually needs to actually start getting results was a big lift. Because even on my onboarding calls that I wasn't even doing properly at the time, too, I would literally it would be like a cell phone call for like 10 minutes. And I'll be like, hey, bro, like, what problem you having? Like, cool. Just make sure you have this, that, this, that. We'll talk later. Bye. Like, that's pretty much how it went. Um, but once we consolidated everything to like School and had like a clear linear progression through each phase on School, like the onboarding got way much simpler. Telegram is still a platform for like just overall quick communication, which works, I think, especially like in a B2C vertical where, most guys don't know how to operate like Slack or like these other platforms. It just makes things very, very simple and easy to navigate. So I'm super happy and proud that I did that. But yeah, going back to the course redo, man, it was
That was a
definitely,
beast, dude. That
yeah,
took a long time.
that
And
took the
most
longest time. Yeah.
that's where most people stop too, transparently. Like, the key thing, we're trying to build back end revenue and basically maximize the profit across the front and the back end of your whole business. And optimizing the actual thing that you're selling is foundational to that. And, just before we get into the course specifically, it's like, in order to optimize the course, you have to have a proper client journey in a linear step by step fashion. You need to be able to describe where are they when they first join the program and what does success look like at the very end. If we don't have a target, you can't systematize anything because we're not solving for an outcome. And so, we created that client journey, which is a process in and of itself. There's a lot of engineering that happens to make things simple. It's actually really easy to make things complicated and complex. The hard part is distilling things down into a very straightforward process, which we did. And then, of course, the course material is basically mapped on top of the client journey. And that's really where things get difficult from a content creation perspective because each course lesson is basically anchored to a specific action that a client needs to take in that client journey and they go step by step. And so
Yeah.
having clear training material that gets people to take that action in an efficient way while giving them the information they need to do that without giving them too much, um, but also giving them just enough. It's a tough balance to strike. And I think your experience with making content in general definitely prepared you for that. But could you speak a little bit to um, what a difficult challenge it was to create an actually good course?
Yeah, I mean, I almost compared to like writing a book. I mean, writing a book isn't easy. It's just a book with videos instead. So yeah, I mean, the outline, which you guys definitely did help with that. The actual journey, what is the A to Z, what is the zero to hero? I kind of had a clarity on that just from the previous course, but like it could definitely be distilled in more tangible, fast action sort of things instead of, making it complex, like you said. But then alongside with that, even once that's done, it's like, okay, now I got to film all this, you know, and and I know, I remember I asked you, you was like, should I get this edited? You're like, oh, you don't have to get it edited. You can keep it simple, but I didn't listen. I actually got an editor and just to make things like, I like things with quality and like going into this thing, like I just wanted like a certain perception of when somebody comes in here. It's like, he really took his time with this, which I did. It took like, I think 6 months or 7 months, something like that for everything to get done. So yeah, I had to, after filming all the videos and also working with my assistant coach and client success guy and integrating him in the process, which for me is a bit of a unique stance there. We had to get all the videos edited, how to organize everything, the resources too. So yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. It was what I was focusing on every single week for like 3, 4 months. It was like the main priority. But like you said, it's like if you have a bad product, then like what are you selling? Um, and even with coaching offers, I'm not sure the stats on this, but I heard something like the course completion rate usually is low anyway. So I was like, how much should I even like put into this given that probably 90% of people won't make it all the way through? But I just kind of said whatever, like assuming like the best client that I could envision myself working with actually does make it through. And fun fact, I just did a case study yesterday with a client who literally went through it flawlessly, the whole entire thing. Um, I'm just gonna make it the best possible, and that's what I did. So now I'm proud of what I built. Is sequential, is logical order, is very clear on what the client should do every single week. And now at this point, I mean, I could just make it better and just update things if needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it goes back like the key mechanism, like my own North Star is creating the highest value client experience possible. To me, like I believe that's what creates the most amount of revenue in the long term and profit as well. And what that looks like practically from when clients like interface with your product, and ask the question, what is the product in a coaching scenario? It's course, coaching, community. And the course is kind of one of the main things, especially in a B2C environment where clients perceive that as the actual thing that they're buying. And I think to the fullest extent that you can help it, which is difficult for a lot of people logistically, but if you can do it and you have the bandwidth, your stuff should look and feel as expensive as the price of the offer. And all of us are selling things that are the price of a car at a minimum, and so thinking about it that way, it's like, yeah, it should feel like there was a lot of effort put into this. It should feel pretty expensive. It should be obvious, actually. Um, and speaking to like the indefinite nature of the course, right? Why does that matter? Like from a business perspective? Well, we have to be able to know when someone's ready for a case study. You don't just like arbitrarily decide that. You have to actually set some type of target so that a system can track, oh, this client's ready. Um, Granted, it can be obvious if you're engaging with clients, right? And you have that kind of visibility on the ground floor of your business. But as things scale, it's not feasible to do that all the time, even from like for client success managers to catch everything. Um, and speaking to it too, we created like a clear step-by-step process. And the people that do take action, what do you know? It works. And they
Yeah.
turn into case studies and then, eventually get upsold or renew or whatever the thing is that you want them to do. On the course completion side of things, the metrics for this, according to the last time I looked at it, for the info product space in general, there's a 1% course completion rate on average, but that's also including like low ticket courses as well. From my own data that I've measured for my clients over the past 6 years of running my own business, 7 years of being in the industry, uh, it's about 10% of clients will watch every single video. Not to take us too much into a side tangent here, but the way that you solve that is you make it non-negotiable. Like they
Hmm.
have to watch the videos to that's just what happens in the program. And then the other thing as well, key governing principle of all the stuff is if it was worth it for them, they would. And so if you have that mindset of like, if it's worth it for them to watch the videos, they would. And so we just get
Yeah.
tactically into a frame of mind of how we make it worth it for them. Um, so what has that done for you as far as like the sales side of things, knowing that you have the highest value product that you could have possibly created?
Yeah, it makes me more confident in how I pitch it. I mean, so we rebranded the name from Digital Romeo to Digital Romeo 2.0. And so like, I was talking about it. I was like, yo, look, I was vibe coding apps for it. Like I vibe coded this whole entire AI coach that does every part of the process um, by it autonomously. Like it's crazy. Like, I built some cool tools for it that just kind of I just randomly did. And as I'm doing this, I'm just like talking about like how great this is and like the level of like confidence I have, especially compared to like other dating coaches and other dating courses. It's like by far like logically you're kind of stupid if you don't go this route.
Yeah.
So I think that like the confidence of all that translates into the messaging, like for sure, because like it, we definitely get results. Like it's like if the person like takes action and they're involved, like we have a 99% success rate, like literally. So
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is on that note, right? It's key thing there. If the person takes action, then we have a 99% success rate. I think I do want to touch on this for just a second here because people ask me often as well, like, what is an average success rate or like what should that be inside of my program? And this speaks to client success KPIs as well, of like time to value and case study conversion rates and all this kind of stuff. You have to segment the people that take action versus the ones that don't. Because if you're just reading let's say time to value, for example, just at face value, and you're measuring that against 100% of your clients that includes the ones that are deactivated, and you're using that specific information to help inform you for what changes may or may not need to be made to your client experience, that can very much lead to unwise decision making, right? Like, let's say it's like we see, oh, our time to value is not where we want it to be, but half the people in there didn't show up to the onboarding call or whatever it is. You're identifying what the key constraint is with that specifically. But let's say the next takeaway is we need to make our course again, or we need to add more coaching calls, or I need to hire another CSM. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to get people to use the stuff they already paid for
yeah.
and they'll get the success. And so again, simplification, right? It's identifying what the actual problem is. And so, um, yeah, the one thing I want to touch on too, when it comes to systemization, something that's helped me a lot the whole time that I've been in business is Tim Ferriss's eliminate, automate, delegate
Delegate.
protocol, which is stuff that we've done, right? And so, simply put, you take a look at what your client journey is, the client experience, any of the things that are getting in the way of point A to point B, and point B, to say really simply, is the minimum viable requirements for a case study and what qualifies someone for the upsell. That's how you want to think about it. And you can measure that. And so we take a look at what's going on, and anything that's getting in the way, we either delete it or we reposition it. That's how you slim down your course. That's how you slim down the client journey and reduce that time to value. The next step there is the automate phase, where it's like, how do we make this more efficient and more profitable now? And with AI, as you've discussed, there's an insane amount of opportunity to automate the things that previously required humans to do. And so let's talk about, we don't need to get into the details of how you made it happen because this is like secret sauce, but the actual things themselves, like what are those tools that you've made for your clients?
Yeah. So some of our resources attached to each module, let's say, for example, a style builder where they have to prepare for their photo shoot. So before it was a paper resource, a document. If you have these pants, they pair well with this, and they'll have to visually read it and create their own outfits on like a graph so that they can have like 6 outfits for the photo shoot. But now I was able to vibe code some software in which the user can input pants they have, the shirts they got, the jewelry they got. I coded it to understand like color combinations of what we practice and preach, like, have a monochrome fit. This color pairs well with this. This jewelry needs to match this tone, etc. And they input the stuff, they click enter, and it lists out exactly the outfits they should wear from outfit 1 to 6 based upon the inputs that they put in. So just little things like that, little tools like that just makes the process easier. Or like even in our phase 1, we're like, I'll create a vision board, you know? Um, so I was like, okay, how can I make this easier for them? Oh, let me vibe code some software that allows them to go through a series of questions, input pictures, and then at the end, it creates a vision board for them. So there's little things like that that has made a big difference.
Yeah, right. It's little things, so then they stack up, like you said. And so you think about it from a user experience perspective, it's like, oh, like these are the bottlenecks that are getting. This is where they're getting stuck in the program. It's picking what outfits they need to put together for their photo shoot. And so it's like, oh, what if we just have them upload photos of the stuff that they already got, and then we can build optimized outfits just like that. And it just makes it dumb easy for clients and it gets them moving through the process. Um,
Mhm.
what was your, if you don't mind getting into it just a little bit, your tech stack for that? What platforms did you use to build this stuff?
I use Gemini for everything. Gemini, Google AI Studio.
Nice,
Yeah.
easy. And vibe coding, you just had natural language, just natural prompts.
Yeah, I knew the idea of what I wanted to start with, and I use AI to help me prompt based upon my ideas. And so let's
The key
say,
thing is that it's your ideas though, right? Like you had an
yeah,
actual methodology going into it as far as like what the styling needed to look like. You had clear if then protocols in your mind. You already had to chart it out inside of a document.
yeah,
And that's what made it yours.
exactly. So it can't be replicated. Like I built this photo analyzer tool that like can analyze a photo and tell it like the points of leverage. And that points of leverage is based upon my own ideation and framework that I've created. So, like cool things like that. I even use it for my business too, for content and ideation and stuff. Now I just build tools that kind of help me shortcut the thinking.
Of course. Yeah. Cool. Let's talk about the where things are headed now, right? So as I said in the beginning, the foundations are set, and the way that I see it, you're on the precipice of actual explosive growth that can be sustained now that we've built a rock solid foundation over the last 18 months, of which, by the way, for anyone watching this, that's how long it takes. That's actually very reasonable when you think about it from any other perspective in life. It's like, how long does it take people to usually make 6 figures? The 4-year degree, 6 years, 8 years, whatever. And then you go and make it happen. Then you got to work your way up the corporate ladder. I know this is like the old paradigm, but still, when running your business, a year and a half to set real foundations for real growth is very reasonable and normal. And so, as far as setting expectations for anyone, like that's what you should expect. For me, it's taken 7 years to get where things are at, which is amazing. But that's reality, right? And you hear like guys like Hormozy or anyone else that has a lot of experience, they talk about that. And so, um, one of the things that is really important when it comes to scaling, right? And to be clear with where you're at now, right? You just had your first 100K cash month. You've had, 100K revenue months before, but which is fucking amazing, right? And so the business is really in quite a stable spot. Things have grown as far as the YouTube acquisition side of things goes. Now there's going to be more traffic going through the top of funnel now that the leaks have been plugged in your middle and bottom of funnel. Your sales process is good. Your product is good. And it's extremely important that these foundations are set before you start to scale the back end. That's why it's taken so long. Because if had we just gone in the very beginning and say, oh, let's go create a 25K upsell or a 50K upsell and do all, add 3 or 4 different offerings to the offer stack, that destroys businesses. It's, if you can't do one thing good, that pattern is just going to express itself infinitely inside of your business. And so we're at the point now where it finally is possible to do that in a way that's actually going to lead to the level of growth that we want. And what's crazy too, this is the crazy part, like with all the like working on the product, working on the front end acquisition. I mean, there's been a 20 to 36x ROI since we first started working together with all the money that's been generated. You add the back end sales stuff on top of that, which we'll see in the next 6 to 12 months, it's going to be insane, dude. And so, one of the things that I think is important for people to understand is the sequence of events. It's like you have to have a business that's able to sustain back end sales in order for you to do that appropriately. And so where we're at now with um, the two key things, right? The first one is that you now have, which it's in testing, but it's really like an upgrade to what you've always done, a very, very, very clear message. So do you want to talk about for just a second before we get into like the back end scaling side of things, how important it is that you have a clear message in your marketing and sales process, and also how that bleeds into the client success?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, as I said it before, in terms of YouTube packaging, your ideation towards content, even if you decide to run ads, like the messaging and that you instill into the individual to make them very crystal clearly understand the value of your offer or like what you even do and how that relates to them is like super important. So had a conversation with Alex and with me, it's like with the messaging, it could be like super surface level. It's like from a surface level standpoint, it's like just become better looking, just get more handsome, you know? But there's issues with like surface level messaging because that now triggers limiting beliefs. Like when people, oh, what if I'm just average or what if I'm this, what if I'm that? And I've seen constantly, even though I consider myself objectively not bad looking, I've seen cases in which we've had clients that weren't like super Chad level or like super handsome and they still get results. And so it's like, okay, what type of messaging can appeal to the person who probably doesn't see themselves as like a super good looking guy, you know? Or where it's is what's the word you said, like tangible, like
It
it
feels like a thing. Yeah.
yeah, it feels like a thing, you know? And for us, you know, we came up with, you know, what that word is, and now I can just instill that into like all my messaging, all content, all ads. And whenever you repeat an idea towards people who follow you, especially, it's like over time they start to get sold on your idea and it becomes concrete, you know? Um, like throughout my process of becoming like a new individual, I listen to a lot of Bob Proctor. He's like this affirmation guy.
Nice.
Like,
You're going to the OG sources. Nice.
yeah, yeah. I listen to Bob Proctor every single day. And that really helped like reshape my identity and like how I see myself and whatnot. But the thing about Bob Proctor's videos and RIP to him is that if you watch one video, you might as well watch them all. Low key, it's like the same central message, just in just slightly different ways, but it always comes down to like a core foundational message that he's constantly repeating.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What is that message?
That message is if you change the way you think, you can change your actions and become a new person. That's the way I perceived it.
And that's how it changes your life
Like a
ultimately.
paradigm, you have to change your paradigm first, and then from there your actions will follow. That's pretty
And
much it.
that's the test, right? It's like if you yourself as a like the receiver of this information can't accurately articulate what the actual message is, then that's why the clients who are receiving everyone else's messages can't do it either, or rather the potential clients, right?
Yeah,
And so, yeah, no, that's super key.
yeah. So that's how I kind of relate the messaging to that. It's like the guys who really kill it. You know, it's like I said, it's almost with every YouTube video. You watch a few, you don't watch them all. You know, because it always points back to like one central core idea, and that's what I felt like I was kind of missing. But now, you know, moving forward, we'll see how that will compound over time.
Yeah, yeah. If you guys want to see that, go to Austin's channel, see it
Yeah,
in action. We don't need to break it down. You can watch it actually getting demonstrated. And yeah, the way I like to think about messaging specifically, and I think this might be useful for some people, is that I think about it like crafting an argument. because like what it is, because we think about it from like what's told in other coaching programs and stuff is like, you fill out worksheets and like you figure out who your ideal client is and what their pain points and desires are and all this kind of shit, right? And then you're supposed to kind of like craft an idea and just like pull it out of your ass as far as like what you're supposed to like communicate to them. And I just find that the entire paradigm of that is it doesn't actually in and of itself doesn't have its own core message. And so the way that I think about it is like you are staking a claim. You have an actual argument that you believe to be true. And your job in the content is to get people, again, to install the perception that they believe that that's true. And thus believing it's true, they must work with you to receive it. And so, when you think about it from that lens, it does kind of just make things a little bit simpler and saying like, oh, well, how do I just prove this? What is the actual core idea? What is the argument that I have that I'm bringing to the market? And, from us thinking about this together, actually, funnily enough, it was on our last coaching call, of which, by the way, is why it's useful to have lots of clients coming through your program, because that's the data that you leverage to further improve your acquisition process. This is a key thing with that. We were able to craft a very succinct, very coherent, and most importantly, a simple but true message that is the through line. It's the foundation that every single video that you produce will fall back on. And that also will carry over into the client success side of things, because that core idea shows itself in every single video. And so why that's important from a client success perspective is that oftentimes we're opening and closing loops, or people need to feel like they received the thing that they paid for specifically. And if you tie the messaging that they received in the top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel, and that carries over into the top of funnel of your client success funnel, onboarding, the middle of funnel in your client success funnel, your program, and the bottom of funnel in your client success funnel, case study and back end sale, it creates a very high value client experience, because it's like, oh, they actually fulfilled their promise, right? I think it's important to take note of the fact that your core marketing message is the through line between the entire step-by-step process in the client journey.
Yeah. I agree, man. That's spot on.
All right, so getting to the back end sales side of things. So what we got now is you have your client success system set up. To say it simply, it's a client success pipeline. The milestones in your program within the client journey are the stages in that client success pipeline. When clients hit those stages inside of the program, we automatically track that with them turning in their work. And then a whole series of automations happens in the background that allows us to not only monitor their progress through the program, but automatically assign tasks that get us being the team, to maximize back-end conversions. That means referrals, case studies, testimonials, community engagement, back-end sales, whatever the thing is that you're trying to convert in your client success funnel is what this system captures and maximizes. And so the funny thing about that is it acts as a feedback loop. So the first thing is that your milestones are mapped onto those specific parts of the program. So if people are getting stuck in particular stages in your CS pipeline, we're able to flag that. And it's very obvious when you log in to go high level. It's like, oh, here's where everybody is. Also, we're tagging them if they're stuck in those stages for too long. That signal to us like, hey, what is it that's getting them stuck, right? And that is a feedback loop for us to do things like optimizing the onboarding experience, optimizing our communication, or like in Austin's case for the AI tools, right? It's like they're getting stuck at picking their wardrobe specifically. How can we fix that? AI tool, right? And it allows us to now finally be able to systematically, in a very precise way, improve the client experience without doing a gigantic course overhaul. So that's super important. And also it creates a positive relationship with the acquisition side of things with the client success side, because your client success funnel needs leads, just like your acquisition funnel needs leads. And in order for you to maximize the value that you're receiving, AKA money, on the back end of the CS funnel, you need to have clients flowing through the program. So now there's this positive incentive to where you need to get as many clients as humanly possible, because that allows you to get the maximum amount of data to improve things as quickly as possible as well. And so where we're at with that now is we know the amount of time it takes for people to actually receive the outcome. It's not the same as what was originally crafted a year and a half ago. That's obvious now. So that's going to change, the length of the program. Next step with that is, okay, now we know when the actual time is to sell them the next thing. And now we're getting enough data to see what that next thing should be. And so this is all, to be determined. We're actively crafting this now. But all that's to say is this is what's required to be able to actually scale back end offers without destroying your business.
Yeah. Yeah. It's step by step. So yeah, the next step is to really hone in on that back end, see what that looks like. And my goal is to get it to where the back end is maybe doing like 50% of whatever the average of the front end is doing, you know? So that's the next big stuff for me. We had to build the foundations first, like you said, in order to actually get to that point, and even before like a year and a half ago, like I said, there was no back end, there was no end. It was just like indefinite. Once they sign on, we literally kept them in everything forever. So I was still like helping clients who've been in for like 2 years
Which
who
you
were
were paying
messaging me.
for.
Yeah, yeah. So from that perspective too, like I was losing like a lot of money and time, especially with the very, I don't want to say needy, but like the clients who like wanted like a lot of my attention, right? Imagine doing that for like 2.5 years, but they paid me like 3K one time
Yep.
and my margins were like at 40%.
Which means at a certain point in time, you actually ended up paying for them to work with you, not the opposite.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is a fucked up place to be in as far as the relationship goes with the clients, because now the incentives are inverted. You're incentivized to not help them, which is why, like, for anyone watching this, it is imperative that you have a defined set of boundaries as far as what the experience must be. From a just a quick side note here, lifetime access does not work for the client and it doesn't work for you. Why doesn't it work for the client? It violates Parkinson's law. Things take as long as you allow them to take, essentially. And if they have forever to fix their dating life, it'll never happen. We know
Yeah.
this, the cliche example, the term paper, you wait the entire semester, you do it the night before, magically you get it done. It's the same thing in coaching programs, but the actual duration needs to be reasonable. Like, how long does it actually take? So it's like, I get that question like, how long, what's the length of my program? Well, the answer is however long it takes to solve the problem. That's the real answer. And then, like, as a caveat to that, like, maybe, like, in some cases it's appropriate to add an extra month as a buffer. But besides that's the answer. And it's obvious seeing that, right? But it's like, you don't really know how long it takes to solve the problem unless you have enough data with clients to figure out what that is. And so a lot of these things are easy to talk about on the surface, but it's difficult to execute until you have, enough experience doing it, which your
Yeah.
business has generated that experience now. So anyways, I'm curious to hear, Austin, what would you say, you already know what's coming here. What would
Mhm.
be like the big takeaway from the last 18 months for you? Because you've had a crazy transformation, lost lots of money in the beginning. We've generated 500 to 800K in ARR since then, 20 to 36X ROI. And that's just setting the foundations, right? We're now looking ahead with an optimized messaging and an optimized business that can sustain back end growth at
Mhm.
real, like, crazy amounts of money coming in and crazy amounts of impact. Um, what do things look like for you now with where you're at?
Um, what? Okay. So there's two questions: big
Yeah.
takeaway, or what things look like for me in terms of my day to
Either
day.
one. Either one, whatever direction you want to take it.
Gotcha. I mean, big takeaway for me was honestly, I there was a lot of things. There's so many. It's hard to take one big takeaway, but I would say like just accountability, like maybe just accountability on like full processes and taking like complete ownership. And then alongside with that, like just knowing what I want to. Right. So I feel like the reason why I've reached this level is because I've gotten clear on what I want and I'm no longer content with complacency. Like the reason why I've never excelled past this level or even like invested into help or like understood that I had all these problems is because I always thought I was doing well, you know, for the longest time. I've always thought I was doing well. I'm always around people where I'm always doing the best. So I never thought that, oh, there's a level above this. And then over the course of time when I realized that, oh, there is a level above this and I actually want to see what I'm actually capable of. Once that changed in my head, that's when I started seeing opportunities and actions in order to actually make that a reality. And that's why, like, you guys don't know on how I actually met Alex, but it was really through chance and coincidence.
It
It's
was
almost
crazy,
like,
dude.
yeah. So I'll tell a quick story. I went to a photo shoot because my friend opened this men's spa and he wanted me to be a model. And one of the photographers there, keep in mind, I almost did not go to this either. I almost canceled, but I was like, whatever, I'll go. And so the photographer there, who just did a shoot there or something, stopped me, and I guess he recognized me for my fitness stuff. And then he started asking me questions about my coaching business, and I'm interested in that because very rarely talked about this with anybody. He asked me some questions, and then through that conversation, he connected me with Alex because basically through that small little conversation, he was like, "Yeah, you should be doing way more." I think I told him like my numbers or something. He was like, "What?" He's almost shocked by it. So I was like, I mean, yeah, connect me with it. I'm always open for a conversation. We'll see. And so, like, that's just a small example of how, like, if I would have thought I was doing okay, or if I was whatever, then I wouldn't have been even open to the idea of like meeting Alex, yet alone like investing into myself in any capacity, right? So, I mean, that's really like the big catalyst there. But overall, I would say taking ownership, understanding my business, and actually not being a content creator, but like really honing in on being a coach, not only just a coach, but being a good coach and having a good program that actually gets real results for people, you know? And now my day to day, it's less on content creation, just because like that stuff is very easy to me now. It doesn't take me too long. It's more so, getting client results, managing the team, infrastructure, front end, back end, team stuff like that. That's more my day to day now versus a year and a half ago. It was what video should I post this week to get 200,000 views?
Yeah. So would you say like the identity piece was the biggest thing for you, that kind of like the one thing that solved all the problems from there?
It was the biggest catalyst that without that, yeah, nothing else would have happened. So I think the identity piece, it was the biggest catalyst, but also like the hardest to shift. Because like I said, like I've been doing this for so long. Like
Of course.
imagine you growing up, or for the next 10 years, you use a fork, and then one day somebody tells you to use a spoon instead. Like that's kind of what it felt like to me. Like, well, yeah, I don't know how to use this. Like, this is what I'm
For your
comfortable with.
favorite food too, that you eat every single day.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that was the biggest shift for me, honestly.
What do you think things would look like if we hadn't done all the things that we did over the last year and a half?
Oh, I probably would have. Oh man, I don't. I either probably would have quit or just doing the same things I'm doing now. I mean, doing before. So I probably would have been like hovering that 20, 30K month mark, not knowing what I don't know, kind of thinking everything is okay. I definitely want to have redone the course. I didn't even know that was an issue. Um, you know, yeah, it's hard to say exactly where I would be, but I definitely would not be at this point now, you know, for sure.
All right, last question for you. If you could give one piece of very tactical advice to someone that was in the same situation as you, what would that be?
Mm. Every piece of content or ad that you create, ensure your messaging resonates with a person you would want to help or you feel like you can help best.
All right, perfect. And if you guys want results similar to Austin, book a call down below and let's make it happen.